Hi, so in this episode we're learning more about the general history of Katong-Joo Chiat as well as some of the interesting parts that you may not have heard of before. So an early mention of Katong in recorded history could be traced back to 1819 when Sir Stamford Raffles arrived in Singapore. So he made an agreement with Sultan Hussein and Temenggung Abdul Rahman of Johor about the demarcation of the British settlement. Right, so which stretched from Tanjong Malang in the west to Tanjong Katong in the east. So as Katong has been considered a British territory, it allowed European settlers to set up European-style estate-type agriculture in the area. So one example of this, due to the sandy nature of Katong's land, made it ideal for growing coconuts. So the earliest cultivation was established by Francis Bernard, or the brother-in-law of what you know as Lieutenant Colonel William Farquhar. So he started a coconut estate in the district in 1823, and was soon followed by others such as Thomas Dunman, the namesake for Dunman Road, the Little family, and Thomas Crane among a few others. So there had also been attempts to cultivate cotton plantations, but this was unsuccessful. Since it was before the East Coast Land Reclamation, Katong used to sit near the coastline of Singapore, providing a beautiful backdrop for holidays. So thus being more than just being a plantation site, the plantation owners would also build holiday bungalows, setting the scene for the area to become a seaside retreat. So rich Chinese businessmen called Tao Ke, as in known in Hokkien, would also join in and treat the area as a weekend retreat. So interesting story about Katong's beaches is the sand pinching. The beautiful white sand on the east coast had instances of being stolen, and one of these instances had been related to the founder of Kampong Siglap, also known as Lhasa, who founded the first kampong settlement in Joo Chiat. So according to Kintan bin Muhammad, the great-great-grandson of Lhasa, some Chinese sailors on the Chinese Tongkang, also known as the small wooden boat, had been responsible for stealing sand, which is considered a criminal offence under the British. Some villagers sailed to the boat out of curiosity and were attacked by the sailors who poured hot porridge all over them. So Lassam took upon the responsibility of investigating the matter and sailed towards the boat before climbing on board secretly. He was then confronted by an aggressive Chinese sailor who tried to push him overboard. Yet Lassam was able to transfix him and scold him before bringing him to the authorities. So Lassam was then appointed as the Tok Penghulu, also known as the village headman, in the 1820s for his courage and civic-mindedness, and so earning his title as Tok Penghulu Lassam.
It was also this beautiful white sand which had reportedly caught the attention of Sang Nila Utama, who noticed the white sand of Temasek from a distance and decided to sail to it, and later form a settlement on the island, calling it Singhapura.
As time went by, Katong changed from being a holiday retreat into more of a permanent residence, looking more like a suburban area. In the early 20th century, Katong had seemingly transformed from a quiet rural district into a buzzing district filled with people and shops, yet the more relaxed atmosphere never really seemed to grow old. Now, there were a few reasons behind this development. The expansion and development of Singapore eastwards, as well as the paving of roads such as Grove Road, which ran through Dunman's plantations, and the Laterite Road, which then later became the East Coast Road today. This paving of roads along with developments in transport allowed for easier access to Katong. This increase in permanent residences would then completely alter the landscape of Katong-Joo Chiat, as plantation estates were separated and sold to meet the rising demands for houses. There were also other reasons behind this expansion and movement, as the increase in immigrants from China and India created overcrowding. This transition was further cemented by the building of various buildings and services meant to meet the needs of residents. Some examples of these buildings was the establishment of schools such as the Telok Ayer English School and St. Patrick's School. Other establishments like a police station and religious institutions such as the Church of the Holy Family in 1932 were some examples of services built for the residents. These establishments then attracted many Eurasian families to move to the east, altering the demographics of Katong-Joo Chiat. Thus, Eurasians and Peranakans, also known as Straits Chinese, and their culture would eventually dominate the area. Although the area, especially during the colonial era, had been closely associated with wealth, Katong-Joo Chiat was not only exclusive to the rich. With the increase of wealthy families living in Katong, many shops and travelling hawkers moved with them to meet their needs. There are various accounts of how Tanjong Katong got its name. One interesting perspective we heard from community groups is that the name Katong refers to a species of turtle. The name Tanjong Katong translates to Turtle Point, supposedly because of the large number of the turtle species that could be previously found there. Talking about the names of places which talk about Joo Chiat, the person whom Joo Chiat was named after, and his importance to the area's history. The king of Katong started as a humble trader and harvester to a rich landowner after moving from Singapore, from China, and leaving his family behind. When he started to earn more money, he acquired land on the east coast. He was one of the first to plant gambia when it rose in demand, and later coconut trees when there was a demand for copra. So copra is the dried white flesh of the coconut, which coconut oil can be extracted from. He was also heavily involved in the running and harvesting of his plantations, as was commonplace among smaller landowners. He earned the name King of Katong by the 1930s, when there were also conflicting accounts of the lands that he had gone on to acquire. The decision to pave a dirt track through Choo's plantation in the 1920s not only yielded an interesting anecdote, but also led to the establishment of the famous Joo Chiat Road we have today. In an anecdote by Li Biaguan, the grandson of Joo Chiat, Choo had refused the government's attempts to purchase his land, and since there was no acquisition law then, the government was unable to acquire the land by law. The government had intended to open a road through Choo's land, but Choo only allowed it on the condition the land would not be sold to the government. And to compensate him, the government named the road after him. It was smart of Choo to allow the road to be built whilst keeping the land under his name and control, as the road would bring the benefit of easier transportation for his goods. Choo also knew of the value of his land and would eventually sell off parts of it at a time, which led to the building of shops, public buildings, and the terrace shop houses that Joo Chiat is known for today. Choo was also known for his generosity, where he would rent movies and shows to be played in his home, and would invite neighbours and kampong people to join and watch with his family. In the true behaviour of a grandfather, he would often only watch the show halfway before falling asleep. When he woke up, it was said by his great-granddaughter Irene Tan that he would often wake up at the end of the show happy when he saw everybody, especially his family, still around him. In reality, his grandchildren would often leave after he fell asleep and only return when the movie was ending.
Joo Chiat had been known for being a melting pot of cultures. Beyond the influence of Chinese Peranakans and Eurasians, there had also been the presence of other communities in Joo Chiat. The Malay Muslim community up north closer to Geylang Serai, the Indian community, as well as migrant communities. The various groups of communities within Joo Chiat itself also helped to cultivate an open and understanding environment.
Peranakan refers to a group of hybrid communities with connections to Chinese, Indonesian, Malay, and Western heritage. This mixed heritage will often be traced back to intermarriages between an indigenous woman and an immigrant man. In the case of Singapore, many Singapore Peranakans trace their roots to 15th century Malacca, where their ancestors were believed to be Chinese traders who married local women. Peranakan men were known as Baba, while in contrast the women were known as Nyonya, thus leading to the term Baba Nyonya. There were also non-Chinese Peranakans such as Bugis Peranakans, Arab Peranakans, and Java Peranakans. Another Peranakan community in the Straits settlement that is not of Chinese ancestry were the Peranakan Indians, also known as Chiti Malacca. They are a small but significant community in Singapore. The Peranakan Indians were believed to trace a similar history, but instead of Chinese traders, it was Tamil merchants who married local women. Another Peranakan community who didn't trace their roots to China is the Jawi Peranakan community, who were Straits-born Malay-speaking Muslims of mixed Indian and Malay parentage, and today includes those with Arab parentage as well. Many early Peranakans were entrepreneur traders and shopkeepers, and they were the ones who built the shop houses which line the roads of Joo Chiat today. The majority of the Peranakans also received an English education and were fluent in the language. Thus, they were able to play an intermediary role for the government and were appointed by British authorities as community leaders. Today we are in the Straits Enclave, a conserved 1928 Chinese Peranakan shop house that now serves as a museum, available for the public to visit and learn more about the life and culture of the Peranakan community. It houses many intricate and beautiful Peranakan furniture and objects. This museum was opened in 2019 and displays a personal Peranakan collection which had been passed down for several generations through the owner's family. It displays a multitude of artifacts showcasing the daily lives and tradition of Peranakans as well as their rich material culture. The Straits Enclave currently hosts tours as well as cultural and heritage talks where you can observe and learn more about these objects up close. In a sharing by the owner himself, you'll be able to learn firsthand about the language, clothing, lifestyle, and tradition of Peranakans, along with activities provided by the museum. For example, the tour mainly includes two sections: the overall social-cultural aspect of the community before delving deeper into material culture, such as the furniture and architecture of the Peranakans. They also provide photo shoot services where one can wear the traditional clothing of the Chinese Peranakans, such as the kebaya. After finishing this tour, we are sure that people will have a deeper understanding and appreciation of the Chinese Peranakan community through the life and objects of the owner's family.
Since Katong-Joo Chiat is a location with multiple cultures, we will also introduce other communities in our podcast. There will be future episodes dedicated to learning more about them and their culture, such as the Eurasian community, as well as the different religious communities in Katong-Joo Chiat. So do stay tuned for that.
Katong-Joo Chiat is also known for its food and cuisine, which will entice people to travel far and wide for just a taste. One well-known dish is laksa. Katong laksa is famous throughout Singapore for its smooth taste, as well as the chopped vermicelli, where you can scoop the noodles up with just a spoon. There's a story of one of the Katong laksa which claims to be the first, and was sold by a man Ng Juat Sui, nicknamed Janggut, who learned the recipe of laksa from a Peranakan. He started selling the laksa without a fixed store, some saying a pushcart, others saying that he carried it on his shoulders in 2 metal buckets. He would move between Katong, East Coast, and Marine Parade before he settled in Marine Parade and later East Coast, though a relative opened one in Ceylon Road. Interestingly, it was said that he would put earthworms wrapped in cloth into the soup so that the soup would last the whole day without going stale because of the earthworm's acidity. It was a common practice amongst laksa hawkers, though there has not been much concrete evidence about it. So another popular dish that Katong-Joo Chiat is known for is the popiah. Popiah had been an important dish in Peranakan cuisine, and it was one of the dishes that was a tradition for nyonyas to learn. Moreover, some stalls would sell handmade popiah skins, especially in the Joo Chiat region, which is one of the traditional trades that used to be housed by the shophouses. A famous restaurant for the popiah, which continues the tradition of popiah skin making, is Kueh Guan Huat Joo Chiat Popiah and Kueh Pai Ti, which has been making popiah with handmade popiah skins since 1938. They have also stayed in the same location on Joo Chiat Road throughout their operations till the present day. Joo Chiat is also known for its beautiful shophouses, which contain details of both the history as well as the multiracial and multi-ethnic nature of the area. There are many shophouses in the area, and a variety of styles can be observed from its architecture and details. Historically, there have been a variety of shophouses built throughout the colonial period, so you are able to observe the transition in architectural styles through the different shophouses in different areas. The shophouses have been categorized according to the period they were built in. This will also indicate the artistic style which the shophouse was influenced by. The majority of the shophouses in Katong-Joo Chiat have been built in the first half of the 20th century, showing a transition from the intricate and colourful late shophouse style from 1900 to 1940 to the more clean and streamlined Art Deco style from 1930 to the 60s, as well as some utilitarian modern shophouse styles from 1950 to 1960. Beyond the transitional architectural styles, the shophouses in Joo Chiat Katong are also unique in their decorations and design styles. Combining Chinese and Malay influences with European design and decorations, the shophouses are a good representation of one of the main communities living in the area, the Straits Chinese. One significant aspect of these shophouses was the pintu pagar, which was the half fence that you can find in front of some of the doors. The term pintu pagar means fence doors in Baba Melayu, and it's a popular feature in traditional Peranakan homes. They were practical as they allowed for ventilation when the main doors were open, while still providing privacy from passing onlookers. The pintu pagar found in some of the shophouses in Joo Chiat had been decorated with different Chinese and European motifs, such as a crane and lotus in front of a shophouse called Lotus, which were meant to represent longevity and purity. Another design feature which also represents the multicultural nature of Joo Chiat is the oculus, which are small round holes at the top of the second floor windows. An architectural design from Europe, the oculi were mainly used as windows, but when it was introduced into Singapore shophouse buildings, it was instead used as ventilation holes. Another ornament which had also been introduced from Europe were the festoons, which were garland-like designs often found at the top of the shophouse near the oculus. These designs would often be changed in some ways to fit the local tastes.
Hello everyone, so today I have Renee, an NTU History student here with me who will tell us more about the art scene in Katong-Joo Chiat.
Hi everyone, I'm Renee and I'll be really happy to share with you guys about my favourite neighbourhood in Singapore, Katong. So back in the day, Katong was a scene for artists and more cosmopolitan views. It had been the origin of a famous band, the Stray Dogs, who was one of the most popular bands in Singapore in the 1960s. They were considered your alternative band back in the day because they played genres like rhythm and blues and dance music and psychedelics. So formed in 1966, the band consisted of people who grew up in Katong. The band was so closely associated with the area to the extent that one of its members, Lim Kiang Dennis, had even written a song about Katong where he reminisced about his childhood with his friends and band members, as well as the famous landmarks that were popular among the residents and other Singaporeans. Martin, actually apart from the Stray Dogs, there is also another famous artist who lived in Joo Chiat. Do you want to make a guess?
Is there a hint?
He wrote a song that every Singaporean definitely knows by heart.
Oh, the national anthem.
Yes, you're right. So Zuba Syed, he lived in Joo Chiat Place for more than 30 years, moving in the 1950s and living there till his passing in 1987. The building has now been conserved under the URA, so you can give it a visit. Martin, maybe something you can share with us is how Katong-Joo Chiat has recently exploded in popularity nowadays because of its very Instagrammable looking spots. Do you have any experiences with that when you visited earlier in the episode?
Right, so another artistic aspect of Joo Chiat today is the street art that can be found on the facade of the buildings and shop houses. So much of the art was made in more recent times and is influenced by the culture and heritage of Katong-Joo Chiat, right? Such as the Mosaic Wings Medley Alley, which features majolica tiles, which are the decorative Peranakan tiles found on the shop houses, and each tile has its own unique design. So this street art is unique and is slightly more interactive, with one wing being drawn on one wall of the alley, while the other is being drawn on the other side. Right, so when framed right, the person could stand in the middle of the alley with the tiles, forming a pair of wings. Another interesting street mural is a combination of two murals called Kueh Guan Huat Popiah, meant to depict the shop. Kueh Guan Huat, Joo Chiat Original Popiah, and Kueh Pai Ti. So, this shop has been known for making authentic popiah skins since 1938. So what it depicts is that it depicts what might be a scene from its history, with one depicting a scene of an older woman and a girl wearing sarong kebaya and hand-making popiahs. Another seems to be a scene in the shop with an older man hand-making popiah skins on the stove in front of two boys. So the street art found here is a form of connection between the history of the area and the present time, depicting scenes and cultures that may have been lost to time. So Renee, could you perhaps share with us more on the cultural history of Katong-Joo Chiat?
Yes, of course. So with the independence of Singapore, Peranakan and Eurasian cultures had slowly diminished. In 1965, the government started to define the various ethnic groups into four main categories: Chinese, Malay, Indian, and the others category. So under the CMIO model, they encouraged the acceptance of this new identity, which acknowledged the various ethnicities to an extent, while ensuring that every ethnic group had a more equal standing in Singapore. They further supported this by discouraging the ethnic groups from being more closely tied to their own culture, such as the Speak Mandarin campaign, which promoted the use of Mandarin Chinese and discouraged the use of other Chinese dialects. The Chinese Peranakans and Eurasians had also been impacted by this amongst other historical events. So the Chinese Peranakans were subsumed under the Chinese category, while the Eurasians were relegated to the others category, despite having a significant group in the development of Singapore. Though there was another categorization, the CMIEO model, where Eurasians had their own category, this was not used as often. The rich character of pre-war Joo Chiat would gradually diminish as these two distinct identities were replaced by ones assigned to them. Moreover, the many traditional trades such as the popiah skin makers, tailors, and traditional laundrymen, which used to be more commonplace around the streets of Joo Chiat and its shop houses, had to adapt to remain a viable business, with few surviving the test of time.
So today, Katong-Joo Chiat had been closely associated with wealth and leisure, which promoted the establishment of entertainment centres such as cinemas in the 1950s and 1960s. This increase in entertainment within the region also supported the rise of other forms of entertainment such as pubs, karaoke lounges, and massage parlours, which would replace the traditional trades and open in the iconic shop houses of Joo Chiat in the 2000s. Joo Chiat Road also hosts several budget hotels such as the infamous Hotel 81, which charges an hourly rate. This environment of buzz, as well as the trend which started in 1959 when the government purged the central area of brothels, forced the relocation of these activities, which gave way to a rise of certain trades such as the sex work trade within the Katong-Joo Chiat region. These activities had worsened the prestige of Katong, as well as caused undesirable impacts on the established residents. Thus, groups were formed to combat these issues. Safe Joo Chiat Working Group was formed amongst residents in response to the lack of effectiveness of the policy of police containment, and the group formed the Community Watch Group, which is meant to monitor the right activities. The group will also lobby the government to establish more strict policies, including law enforcement and the giving of licenses. This had been proven to be effective, with immediate results to a fall in the number of streetwalkers, potential clients, and cars driving around the area.
Overall, Katong-Joo Chiat has experienced a change in its culture and heritage, even though the architecture has remained almost the same. The changes show not only a change in the technological advancement as well as the socio-economic status of Singapore, there is also a change in the types of stores that call the shophouses home. Now, the stores that populate these shophouses are mainly boutiques, cafes and restaurants, fitting the interests of the younger generations and growing expat community. Though more traditional stores and heritage businesses still exist, 252 Joo Chiat Road demonstrates this change in the scenery of Joo Chiat. The shophouse sits at the corner of Ceylon Lane and it features traditional decorative motifs on its exterior such as dragons, scholarly scrolls, calligraphy brushes and tropical banana leaves. The shophouse was originally owned by a Peranakan family who operated a provision shop in the building from the early to mid-20th century. It was later changed to house a family-run Jaws paper business, selling the elaborate paper products and structures that are burned during the months of the Hungry Ghost Festival or at Chinese funerals from the 1980s to the 2010s. Presently, it is home to China Collection, a purveyor of the fine vintage and antique Chinese furniture. In 2019, the shophouse was renovated and painted the recognizable blue and white, as it was previously a more muted orange color. Though there have been many changes in the scenery and environment of Katong-Joo Chiat, it still holds some of the heritage and history from the past, and hopefully such heritage can continue to be conserved for future generations to see and learn about the beauty and richness of Singapore's past. So Martin, what are we going to do for our next episode?
Now, since we're in the Katong-Joo Chiat district, I'll bring this somewhere interesting.
So stay tuned for that!